Welcome back to our special show. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and we have been a part of this very special show for the past few months in association with Business World, where we have spoken about the economy and how the revival of the economy is slowly but steadily coming about. The government has done and put out a lot of initiatives to make sure that businesses who have been impacted as a result of COVID-19 do not take the plunge in a way that will perhaps relegate them out of business completely. There's always help, and of course, the businesses themselves have learned to diversify. They have learned to, in fact, survive through a multitude of creative efforts as well as insightful gains which have been made through some platforms, especially those involved in digital, to come around and come out of the pandemic. And without wasting further time, let me in fact introduce my panelists for today. Tanvi Singla, co-founder, Supreme Incubator, joins us on the platform. Pavi Ramani Sankar, co-founder and COO of FinWeGo, also is joining us on the platform. Prasad Sriram, founder and CEO of Kogos Technologies, is also here with us. Anup Jain, managing partner, Oreos Venture Partners, is also joining us on the platform. Last but not the least, Dr. Anurag Batra, chairman and editor-in-chief of Business World and Exchange for Media Group. Tanvi, let me start by asking you a very simple question. First up, apprise our viewers of what your business is all about, and at the same time tell us what were the predominant challenges that you specifically had to overcome to go through this very difficult period. I know of a lot of businesses, Anurag also knows of a lot of businesses which did not survive. They could not take the pressure, they could not take the strain of the pandemic and how it has changed our economy. Obviously, there's been help by the government, but everybody did not avail it. There were businesses who are reluctant to get into credit mode and sustain their businesses because they were not sure when the vaccine was going to be out. They were not sure when people would show the pre-COVID trends once again. Tell us about your business and how the pandemic impacted you, and what was the success story, if there is one, behind coming out of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vineet. Thanks to Anurag for having me here. So speaking about the business, we are an early stage startup incubator. We work with early stage entrepreneurs in enabling access to mentorship, networking, infrastructure and resources for them. Now, speaking of the impact on the pandemic, we fall under the enabler ecosystem category. And I think like many of us out there, we thrive on in-person interactions. We thrive on face-to-face meetups and face-to-face networking opportunities for entrepreneurs. So I think that was definitely an interesting challenge for us to mitigate early in the lockdown, that how can we maintain the same level of energy as a live event, how can we maintain the same level of one-on-one networking opportunities for entrepreneurs out there in the events and programs that we organize. But I would say that there's definitely been a silver lining for us as well. We have been able to expand our mentor pools, we have been able to expand our applicant pool globally. So, that has given us an opportunity to reposition ourselves as a hyper-personalized program and thereby work with founders where they are. So, we have founders joining in from Mumbai, Pune, Tripura, and they join the same program, they get access to the same mentors across the world. So that's definitely helped us reposition us that way.
Okay, Tanvi, I want to ask you, there are too many incubators, and why not? The more the merrier, the more entrepreneurs you can enable, the country needs them. For the economy to do well, for problems to be solved, we need entrepreneurs. But what's your differentiator? Because there are too many incubators trying to do exactly what you're trying to do. And when you ask them what's your differentiator, they say similar thing. So what's the differentiator that Tanvi Singla and Supreme Incubator bring to the table? And give us a sense of how it has made to some of the startups that you've been involved with.
Right. Thank you for the question, and I think it's very relevant as well for entrepreneurs in general to have a differentiating factor to exist in the market. So I would say for us, we focus on hyper-personalized support, as I mentioned, and I agree that there are many other incubators out there that provide similar or same programs, but we really focus on the hyper-personalized bit of it. So when a startup joins our program, so for instance, in the current cohort, we have startups joining in from different categories and industries. So when a startup joins our program, we enable a customized network ecosystem around that startup of that industry. So, for instance, we have 2 space tech founders in the current cohort. So while we've incubated them space tech as an industry for the first time, but when they entered into the program, our objective was to enable personalized hands-on support for them from the space tech, deep tech, and hardware industry as a whole. So I think that is where we differentiate ourselves. Is that definitely we have cohort-wide networking meetups, we have cohort-wide investment opportunities, but there's a lot of hands-on personalized focus where we work with each individual founder on a day-to-day basis to truly enable the support that they require for their venture in their industry on a regular basis. So that I would say is one of our differentiating factors. Again, another one is that a lot of incubators have moved virtual, remote, online. So I think that with that we ourselves also work with founders from across the country. So yes, hyper personalized and remote, I would say.
Okay. Then we'll come back to, as we move into 2021. What are the sectors that you see becoming hotter in 2021, and what do you think startups need to do differently in 2021 that they've done in 2020? But let me bring in Anup Jain of Aureus Ventures. Anup, you've been a corporate executive, you were an entrepreneur, now you're an enabler for entrepreneurs. You're part of a early stage investing fund. Give us a sense of what has happened in the last 9 months in the investing space, and how has your investment philosophy and investment decisions been impacted by that?
Thanks, Anurag. Look forward to learning a lot from this panel, and thanks for the diversity on this panel. So the first, 3 months, which is April, May, June, was a lot about protecting your folio, and the whole system was very uncertain as to how we will interact with each other and how will we make decisions for the future. So everyone was scrambling, I think, to also learn about how to operate this particular video conferencing solution on which we are feeling at home today, as also to figure out what will be the new channels through which information and data will flow and relationships will happen, because making relationships is extremely important in the investment business. You're not investing in an idea, you're not investing in the space, you're not investing in a building or an office, you're investing finally in the people. And at an early stage, this is even more relevant when there is actually no data. It's all about ideas, it's all about plan, and it's all about somebody's reputation and somebody's credibility on the line. So the next 6 months, they were actually quite good. And let me sort of give credit where it is due. The large investment that came into Geo platforms just absolutely catalyzed the whole of India, and especially the startup ecosystem. It was a recognition of sorts that the tech economy is here to stay, and founders started to come back in from the second quarter onwards, and address new sectors and new segments and new issues with a lot more gusto than the first 3 months showed. I believe that if that event had not happened, the whole system couldn't have been catalyzed to the extent that it was. It was a stamp of approval, if I may call it. And that's also the time when Press Note 3 had come into action, and the Chinese investment was actually something that the ecosystem was not going to see for a certain period of time while the geopolitical tensions continued. So this was a shot in the arm. How we invested? We invested behind sectors which were going to be staying here as part of the tech economy, and consumer mindsets were shortly going to show that they will be changed forever. So, previously people used to toy between offline and online. Now I think I can confidently say that people of all age groups tend to look at online as the first channel for accessing any product or service. It never used to be the case. And therefore businesses have to be organized around that. Earlier, businesses used to be organized in isolation, and consumers used to figure out how was the best way for them to access that product or service. Now that's not the case. One of the big things that we saw is that just an example to exaggerate the point was the health tech industry. In India, the number of beds and the number of doctors per thousand of population is totally skewed in favor of the medical fraternity. And, we as consumers have never been in control of our experience over there. But suddenly clinics ran dry. People did not want to visit hospitals. I must say people are not falling sick as well. Apart from COVID infections, people are generally, healthy because they were staying more at home, not traveling as much. And it was doctors and hospitals who started reaching out to health tech startups to be on telehealth platforms. Doctors were willing to list themselves and be rated by consumers and having transparent, calendar slots which they would attend on time for a video or a clinical consultation. Now, if this is not reflective of a change in the mindset in an economy, then I don't think this is there's going to be anything better than this. So we saw that investment in sectors which were going to be now perennially in front of our eyes, health tech, education, something which is non-discretionary, more essential in our lives. That is something that we try to bet on. For the time being, we did slow down.
And Anup, did you see a change in the attitude of the entrepreneurs? Were the valuations more realistic, more palatable to investing? What was the tangible difference you noticed in what you saw in an entrepreneur's attitude to raising funds before COVID and post-COVID?
Well, look, there are always, I feel, two sets of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs who've been part of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, they certainly ask for a premium and they often get it. Now that irrespective of COVID or not COVID, that would continue. But first-time founders, they certainly, I would say they were more realistic. And we did see a bigger realism come in the minds of both investors and entrepreneurs when they talked about their businesses. It was more rooted in what a business should be all about. It is not just about getting consumers and then forgetting about the economics. It is about being focused on profitability. It is about being part of this digital acceleration that has happened. So the entire roadmap of development of the startup or of your company was then built in that fashion to take advantage of the changes that were happening and not ignoring it. And I'm kind of saying that, look, when COVID goes away, vaccine comes in, we'll be back to where we were. So we're never going to be back to where we were. So I think that recognition had come in. And investors did slow down on certain discretionary spend sectors like travel, entertainment, food.
And plus also investors back their existing portfolio because for the need for cash in existing companies sometimes took precedence over investing in new companies. So that's understandable. Let me bring in Pavi and Prasad into the conversation. First you, Pavi. Pavi, tell our viewers what your business is and how have you pivoted in the last 8-9 months and where are you headed?
Sure, Anurag. Thank you for having me here. So Finvigo is a neobank for the educational institutions, and we offer a fee automation platform for the educational institutions. And through this, we reach out to about 3,000 plus educational institutions across the country. And the stakeholders of the education ecosystem, which are the students, parents, and the educators, and of course the institution owners themselves, can access education-focused finance products on this platform. And this includes payments, loans, insurance, and investments. So that's what Finvigo does.
And tell us, with education going hybrid in some cases and purely digital and virtual in most cases, tell us how was the adoption of your platform aided by COVID? Because education is a sector that continued full stream virtually in COVID times. Our homes became classrooms and our children started to attend colleges and schools through virtual tools. So clearly when the virtual adoption of various tools in the value chain of educational institutions happened, fees can't be left far behind. So give us a sense of adoption of your technology by educational institutions and tell us where are you headed?
Yeah, sure. So what happens is that, like you aptly mentioned, so when children are not going to schools and colleges, there's obviously not going to be fee payment queues and counters any longer. So there's an automatic shift towards digital payments, and people are looking for the most convenient ways to pay the school fee as well.
And contactless, because you don't want to be in contact. Today we are in a 3C economy, contactless economy, a collaborative economy, and what I call a compassionate economy. These three things are driving. You take any business, you're building businesses around these three fundamental pillars. Go on, Pavi.
Yeah, absolutely. The safest way to pay and as well as the most convenient. So what we saw is a spike in growth of the number of institutions that adopted the platform during the COVID, and not just the platforms, of course, the end users, which are the parents and the students, also adopted the platform really, really well during COVID. So that was something that was, so what happened was essentially fintech is no more a push product, it's more a pull product. That's what I would probably say.
You're saying that's the big shift that happens, that people are looking for solutions that help them kind of live their life in a digital economy. And I love the term you use, that fintech is no longer a push product, it's a pull product. I think for a lot of products and services in the digital era, they've become pull products and not push products. That's a nice line for a headline. But let us go to Prasad at this point. Prasad, give our viewers a sense of your business and tell us what has happened to your business in the last 8-9 months.
How are you? It's great to be a part of the panel with the diversity team here. Really appreciate it. Kogos Technologies is a logistics platform. So we are the people in the essentials as well as in a day-to-day thing right now. We are spread across in 21 states in India right now. And we do mostly intra-city deliveries, like local deliveries. But this is all B2B what we do. So we become like the infrastructure for most of the companies, including deliveries and big baskets, Flipkarts and Amazons of the world. We have been serving mostly tougher terrains like East and Northeast. It's quite interesting. Like anybody else, we were affected too initially during the lockdowns. We were down to 20%. However, by the quarter, it became very imperative, right? There was a lack of facility, right, for people to even get vegetables and fruits. There has been a scramble, and we have been recognized by a lot of these governments, especially municipalities, to help them out, to find out, required infra and facility, including vehicles and others. And we were very proud to be part of 2-3 initiatives where we were able to help the farmers, right, procure the fruits and vegetables nearby, and also were happy to serve all the residential complexes, hopcoms and others. Apart from that, COVID definitely, as rest of the panel said, had changed the mindset. I would say for good, right? Especially for a lot of companies and startups where a lot of real estate has been freed up now. I would say, right? People have started to work from home, right? And very useful real estate is being put in. And the second aspect which we really liked in COVID is we have been struggling a lot because logistics, like you need to have feet in ground, even to convince within the teams that, some things can work from home had always been tough, but now it has been a forced work from home, and it definitely did help the productivity. And also the companies, I cannot name them, but the big logistic requirers also required always a paper, right? Hey, my security guard has to stamp, then only I agree and I pay for you, right? So that's like, going backward. But now everybody agrees upon time stamping. They like to track the fleet in real time, right? They love and they keep asking, hey, what's something new you're going to add for digital right now? Right? So this definitely changed the mindset. And logistics has become the key thing, right? In a day in, day out product now. Everything from toothbrush to sanitary product to everything is being now delivered through a thing. And one more important aspect I have seen, which really appreciative of the the Indian business, which is very resurgent, is the thin line between brick and mortar stores and online, like e-commerce, has really faded out now. A lot of
Yeah, and there's been a omni-channel experience, if I may use, and clearly while e-commerce is here to grow, and Anup and Prasad, just to support your line of thinking and argument, in the US from 2000 to 2020, the total size of e-commerce in the retailing space was 16% in 20 years. However, in the last 9 months, that 16% has become almost 27%. So more than 10, 11% increase in 9 months. So that acceleration of e-commerce in the US shows that e-commerce in India is going to accelerate. And I know, 2 years back saying Walmart paid too much for Flipkart, and it's never a bad thing when Indian entrepreneurs and Indian companies are so successful. Sachin and Binny Bansal clearly are the poster boys of building something to scale, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm just saying that e-commerce is giving rise to so many other industries and domains. Somebody's got to produce the product, somebody's got to ship them, drones and drone delivery is still far away in terms of mainstream deliveries, but somebody's got to go physically and deliver it. So it's creating jobs. So, this thing of, technology is taking away jobs. Technology is also enabling jobs.
I would say it's an enabler. Yeah, you're absolutely
what I would
right.
like to know from you is, Prasad, as we go into 2021 in supply chain management and logistics sector, that has seen a lot of interest. Companies in this sector saw valuations that again look very currently out of whack, if I may use that word. But clearly there is something that this sector holds that is attracting investors. Give us a sense of what are the differentiators when you move into 2021. What will separate the boys from men in supply chain and logistics domain?
Absolutely. I would say it is extremely well positioned question. See, unlike other startups and players in the market, we never treated that logistics is a problem of metros. Okay, so we are right now in more than 300 plus cities. Okay, you take all the northeast, east, Jharkhand, Bihar, Orissa. You never imagine, right, how kind of logistics requirement is there even in those remote places, right? So we are serving all these places. And to give a point to Dr. Anurag's point is e-commerce is here to stay. I would give a metric this year during the Big Billion Days and the Great Indian Festivals and all the festive season, right? The metros have been very flat, right? The requirement we got from most of the companies serving in these regions was very flat. But however, in our Bharat, right, I would say like in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right, there is a spike of more than 70%, right? And some places it was like, almost 100% increase in requirement. So I would say if we have done like 20-30% of business in metros, 70% was done in other cities this time.
Fantastic.
So it's very
Bharat is the big opportunity. You're saying as the aspirations of people in real India or rural India or semi-urban India grow, companies like yours who focus on Bharat primarily and not just Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore will possibly grow, and that's what will make them differentiated from other players. Anup, before we take a break, I just want to ask you, when you're building large companies, you need to have entrepreneurs in it. Even professionals who work within those companies have to work with founders to grow those companies. Tell us, when you look at large Indian companies and when you look at startups, what is the differences you see amongst them? Because whether it's edutech, whether it's media tech, whether it's fintech, large existing Indian companies have tried to foray into it, but except one large company, most of them haven't succeeded. So is it possible to bring that entrepreneurial culture, the getting it done culture, trying new things culture, failing fast culture, to large Indian corporates who now looking at what the startups have done, want to build startups within their ecosystem. Do you see that as a possibility, or you think it's not going to happen?
It's a very interesting question, and one can talk for.
Question, Anup, before you answer that question, we have to dip into a break. But what we're going to do is, as soon as we come back, we're going to get the answer from you folks. Time for us to dip into a short break. Be right back. Welcome back. You're watching NewsX, and we're in the middle of this special session with some of the best entrepreneurs and business minds of the country. And Anup, before we in fact took a break, Anurag had posed a question for you. Please go ahead and answer that for us.
Yeah, Anurag, so I said that, look, that's a very interesting question, and one can spend hours on it. Look, people are the same everywhere. I have worked in large companies in the early part of my career, almost a couple of decades. And I think I was living always on the edge of it. I wanted far more excitement than the environment would provide, which is why probably I switched over when the time was right, enabling, entrepreneurs like, Pavi and, Prasad and Tanvi, who are here on the show. I think the large companies by design are designed for risk minimization, and that works completely contrarian to the purpose of innovation, because innovation is all about taking risks. It's all about disrupting the status quo, and you can't do that unless you take some risks. And large companies are designed for rewarding people who avoid risks, who avoid short-term losses, who avoid getting into mistakes, and they're termed very quickly as failures. So unless companies can change the internal environment and reward a separate bunch of people, maybe who they can call out as innovators, and can say that, look, go ahead guys, go ahead and fail, but at least show us something new. Right? Maybe we will get one or two innovations which will get classified as disruptions in their own line of business, and will take that particular company forward, right? And will help them discover that disruption which they otherwise have only a hope of discovering by a startup founder who comes along and gets distribution and builds his idea or her idea without the fear of failure. So the fear of failure is something that does not exist in the startup world.
Anup, let me ask you a follow-up question. Do you think that the idea of disruption, has it been facilitated, or has it been discouraged as a result of the pandemic?
So the idea of failure has been certainly encouraged. I think the question that posed to me was about large companies versus startup founders. Look, startup founders have always been used to taking risks, and they've taken even bigger risks in the pandemic. Many of them had to structure their models, their organizations completely differently to what they were doing prior. Many of them had to accept the slowdown and even let go of people, and also do something which they hadn't earlier planned to do. So many of our own folio companies were looking at really sprucing up their tech because they saw greater demand coming towards the end of the pandemic, with the digital acceleration that Anurag mentioned, which was seen in other parts of the world as well, and certainly here in India. In India, we will miss, I think, 3 to 4 years completely as a result of the pandemic due to this digital acceleration. We straight away land up into 2024, I feel. So 2021 is going to be a very different year if 2020 hadn't happened the way it was.
Absolutely.
I think Vineet asked you a beautiful question about failure, and you rightly said in corporate India and in large corporates, you're rewarded to minimize risk, right? To calibrate risk. You can't totally eliminate it, but as long as you calibrate it and as long as you minimize it, you get your numbers right. Status quo often produces good results, not sure great results. Tell me, what are your top lockdown lessons as you enter 2021 from the last 9 months? Because before 9 months, possibly we didn't even know what we don't know. we had unknown unknowns, as I call it. And now we know that never say never. You know, we know that less is more. We know that work from anywhere is possible. We know that digital actually solves a lot of problems. So give us, what has been the change in your mindset as somebody who's part of a fund and who backs other entrepreneurs?
So I think the biggest change in mindset for us is to look at disruption in a very disruptive way, if I may call it. Earlier, even from our own lens, if any of the entrepreneurs present here on the show would come up with a disruptive idea, we would sort of look at it from a lens of, is this going to become a big idea in the next 5 years or so, right? But today, after what has happened in 2020 and with the acceleration that we have seen in consumers and businesses towards greater, embracement of digital, channels, we are now saying that, look, anything is possible. Bring us the most disruptive idea and we will accept it, right? Because anything can now be possible. We were not a country where businesses would pay for technology and pay for services which were built around a tech network. We're used to downloading free software and using it for as long as we can. But today we see the value of that in our life. SMEs are jumping on to accounting, GST software, taxing, any service that you can imagine. Consumers are doing the same thing for digital health, for education. It's already been, the story has already been written. I believe education will completely change. We are not going to go back to a 9 to 4 kind of a schooling. There is going to be hybrid schooling. I urge the educators who are watching this show to redesign, education so that we can do what we can do on the screen, and what we can't do on the screen, that we should maximize in the school premises. We should not build it like a retail business.
Serendipity. I just did a 1-hour conversation with Sanjeev Agarwal and T. N. Hari. Both have been part of building multiple companies. They said exactly the same about education. So clearly, education will not remain only an on-campus education. It may not remain an 8-hour, 6-hour education. It may change forever. And while we like to romanticize the hybrid model or the on-campus model for its life skills, and I'm not saying it doesn't provide life skills, I think the numbers of hours we spend in an educational institution in a traditional way will change. And hence, it's a big question, what will happen to a lot of educational institutions who are built on just getting people to the campus, So I think that's a $1 trillion question, not even a $1 billion question. It involves students, it involves parents, it involves teachers, it involves the heads of the educational institutions. But I'm sure they're thinking about it, and some of them will preempt this change and lead the change, while some may be forced to adapt it. Let me go to Pavi at this point. Pavi, as an entrepreneur, what are your top lockdown lessons?
Sure. So just before that, I'd like to comment on something that we were just discussing about education, because it's really close to my heart. So the hybrid model is definitely coming, and the reasons as to why probably people would go to schools or a physical campus is because I think during the lockdown we all learned that one of the most important services that an educational institution offered was actually daycare services. So they took care of our children for us, and education came along with it. I've been an educator myself, having run schools. I never really realized that was one of the biggest services that I was offering when I was running a school. Having that on one side, the other side is that the digital divide actually came out right and open when COVID came up. We still have so many thousands of students who do not get access to the online education. And I think that is something that this definitely yet is ripe for disruption. So the digital infrastructure for the rest of, for actually Bharat is something that we really need to look into. So that's just an opinion and comment on what we were discussing. But coming to lockdown lessons for us, the visibility that a platform like Radius gave us into the cash flow of an educational institution, which we would probably have to visit, get to know, was something astounding, because otherwise we would not be able to underwrite these institutions, get to know them better before actually giving them a loan or any other financial product. Was now possible because of the cash flow visibility that was coming from platforms like Radius. So I think the way that we would look at understanding an educational institution completely switched before and after COVID.
Okay, that's true. But what are your top lockdown lessons as an entrepreneur? Philosophically, what has changed in Pavi's DNA when she approaches her business and thinks about her business long term?
I think coming back to the first principles, the business is there for a business model, and I think we're all here. We shouldn't forget that. And pure value creation is what I think not just Finvigo but all startups would focus on. That's been our lesson. Our lesson has been that we are here as a business to aim at profitability, and that's
bring down the cost down. Maybe the staff that you have for fee collection. So, what is the business benefit you provide has to be fundamentally showcased. If you showcase that, business is built. But I was looking for more philosophical inputs. For somebody who has less hair, I'm always more philosophical. So clearly you have lots of hair. So I shouldn't be expecting you to be philosophical. Let me go to Prasad at this point. Prasad, what are your top lockdown lessons?
My top lockdown win is opportunities always exist. Right?
Absolutely.
When this whole thing actually went down, we were very optimistic that things will come back. But it has come back in many better ways. In fact, we have done a merger, I would say an acquisition during lockdown, which we would have never expected we would have been doing, right? So it's actually, we acquired a division of a fellow competitor. So we consolidated. And we got into new spaces like Gujarat and Maharashtra, Delhi NCR, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. Right? That's a great thing. And we never anticipated that we'll be able to do a acquisition completely remotely, right? Not even visiting a person, contactless, right? All the 3 C's. Of course, we had to develop a psychometric tool so that we evaluate people, not just the books of the company. Right? So we evaluated people and we restructured our whole organization to make sure culturally, emotionally, and functionally we're all aligned. Because most of the acquisitions fail because people don't come together, right? So that we have taken care, and we're very happy about it. And the biggest lessons I feel is people understood. So logistics always needs to have feet on ground. Right? However, now like the way we keep telling that, we digitize the world, but we got digitization within our system, right? Within our people, right? Everybody are willing to work that extra hour, right? Which they saved because they were not traveling 1 to 2 hours daily to office. And being compassionate has been a biggest lesson, right? I have had personal losses. Never expected that people close to me would actually go through and we lose them. But health is one big thing which we clearly see. It has to be taken up seriously, and the family time definitely has improved for all our workers. We are very happy for them and for us too. So these are the points we majorly look at.
Tanvi, you clearly look at, when you look at early stage startups, you look at founders that kind of lead these, you're evaluating them, because I'm sure out of a number of startups, you then kind of shortlist a few and then invest in even lesser ones. I want to ask you 2 questions. One, what are your top lockdown lessons? What has changed in Tanvi Singla's way of approaching her work? And second, what is the change you see in the entrepreneurs you partner with?
So lockdown lesson wise, I would say, professionally, there was a learning that, change is the only constant. In February, we might have held some conventional schools of thought that have been radically challenged in April, May, June, July, and so forth. So I think that at all times in a rapidly changing consumer behavior, rapidly changing environment, it's just very important to stay agile and lean. So I think that was a reinforcement of something that we already knew. So I think that being agile, being lean was something that we already knew as a principle, but the lockdown really reinforced that. And personally, for me, I would say learning has been that, we need much less stuff that we think on a regular basis. I think that's been one of my takeaways. And definitely we need to, early in the lockdown, I saw that we were jumping from meeting to meeting. Now that there's no commuting, we jump from webinar to webinar, meeting to meeting, activity to activity. But then as we've progressed into this way of working, I've really seen that it's very, very important to set aside thinking time, set aside time to actually introspect where all the effort that we put in, where all the resources and investment that we put in is actually churning out, whether it is for our personal relationships, whether it is for our professional decisions that we make. So that's definitely been an important learning for me to, set aside time, pause, think, reflect, and reevaluate my actions.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. I think you're right. Activity and progress are two different things. Activity doesn't equal progress. Exactly. And I think we need to evolve. And I have said this, and I am a person who works very long hours and only works and doesn't do anything else. But I think we shouldn't over-glamorize activity. We shouldn't glamorize overwork. There has to be balance. I would say before this that I don't believe in work-life balance. If you love what you do, then you work 8 days a week, which is the right title of my book that comes out in 2021. It is a metaphor for loving what you do and doing what you love. But clearly, as health becomes important, introspection, slowing down becomes important. Slowing down can help you rejuvenate. You get new ideas, new perspectives when you have empty spaces. I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely agree with you on that. Now, let me ask all of you, you've seen the government has been in play over the last 8-9 months. Whether the 4 interventions that the finance minister made, the policy interventions and rate cuts that RBI did, or the frequent communication the Prime Minister made with the citizens of this country, the government was very responsive and proactive in dealing with this pandemic, both on the life and livelihood side. I want to know from you, how do you think it has helped? And do you think the government can do more from here on to help the entrepreneurs and kickstart the economy? Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister, has said that this year's budget on 1st Feb 2021 will be a budget like never before. So clearly she has raised the expectation. I would like to know, as an entrepreneur, what are your expectations from the policymakers in government? Let me start with you, Tanvi, this time, and I'll go around the house.
Yeah. So just to answer your previous question as well, and I'll connect this to this answer, Anurag, where we were talking about how do we look at founders going forward and, founders that didn't get, accepted into any program or for any investment opportunities. What are their shifts in mindset thinking? So I think that everyone is now focused on survival and self-sustainability. So I think this is another lesson that entrepreneurs have learned through the lockdown, that at the end of the day, we are all entrepreneurs who are building solutions for customers. So a customer-oriented approach is at the end of the day very important. So that I think has been reinforced through the lockdown as well. Coming to the government measures, I agree that, there's earlier in April, there were a few of measures announced for MSMEs in particular. So speaking from a startup entrepreneur's perspective, definitely I think it's, any financial lifeline is important for cash-stripped founders who are early in their journeys of building ventures. So for those who did opt to register as MSMEs and opt for those financial benefits, I can't speak for them, but definitely any step is a step in the right direction. And going forward, we'll definitely look at more measures for sector-specific support, sector-specific support for particularly for industries that didn't anticipate all these, unprecedented changes to their consumer demand. At the end of the day, no matter how much financial support you offer, if there's no customer demand for a venture, they still, need to pivot and reorient their business. So I think that that's definitely one thing that we need to collectively find solutions for, that how do we support entrepreneurs? How do we support companies that were serving us for such a long time in industries that might not any longer be as relevant as they were before?
Beautifully articulated. Anup, what are your expectations from the government, and how do you rate the government efforts till now?
So I think, Anurag, I'm very happy with the steps that the government is taking, all through, not just this year, but, this is the second term. And I can tell you that from our interactions, even as investors with the DPIT, as well as, with the bureaucracy, I'm very pleasantly surprised versus when I used to be a student, or when I used to, be sort of anticipating an exchange with the government or government's functionaries. It's a breath of fresh air today. Everyone is in a very positive and a constructive mood. We are seeing changes in policies. We are seeing reforms that are opening up the economy. We're also seeing, a lot of responsiveness. So when something does not work out quite all right, government takes cognizance of that, gets people around the table, takes their point of view, and is not averse to rolling things in a different way to address that feedback. I think that kind of responsiveness has been seen from the government multiple times over. We saw that during the implementation of the GST as well. What are our ask and wish list from the government? Look, if any country has to progress from being an emerging country to a developed country, there are 2 or 3 things that need to happen, right? There is the tax net. We have to make sure that there are more people in the tax net, right? And taxes have to be structured in a manner that more people pay taxes and they feel less incentivized to evade them. What does this lead to? It leads to government having the necessary spending to influence the 2 most crucial sectors of any economy which cause this change from emerging to developed, which is health and education. Health and education are seeing abysmal spending as percentage of the GDP if you compare that to any of the developed countries in the world. These are 2 things that every household spends money on, irrespective of what their condition is. They spend most of their disposable income investing behind these 2 aspects. The third aspect is logistics. Logistics in our country is, almost 14% of the GDP. Now that needs to drop down to a 6 to 7%, which means infrastructure. We need to have infrastructure to transport goods from one end of the country to another without the cost that it currently entails. So you need to have that entire infrastructure, whether it's agricultural commodities, whether it is transport of people, products, services, people moving from one place to the other. It includes airports, it includes our railway networks. Now that brings the entire economy much closer, right? And that leads to progress. When you don't see that 14% bill due to logistics inside everything that you buy, whether it's a bottle of shampoo or it's your next car. So to bring all of that to speed, we must continue to make all efforts. I'm greatly encouraged by the new Atmanirbhar initiative. We are a large economy. We cannot have, independence, and we cannot have a liberal economy unless we give all possible opportunities to all the entrepreneurs that we have, and we have no less than any other country in the world, to make India self-reliant in terms of all that it actually needs in every segment. We have the minds, we have the potential.
Anup, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this amazing show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Anurag, thank you for having everybody here.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.